Hello, everyone. Testing. I'm hoping this setup is working. Just gonna sculpt a bit on something I've been working on late at night. But I've got some time today now to sculpt. So, boom. So we can change that. There we go. So this is the piece I'm working on currently. It's a little monster creature, what have you. And this part is all done. I got a bit of a removable tongue. It's fun. I will eventually set that in, I think. Yeah. And when it's done, there will be a warrior lady riding on top of its back, holding a sword. That is the plan. Right now, well, this is all solid and baked. I'm sculpting in this cosclay, which is a nice material, nice soft clay, but too soft. This is the medium form, and it's bakeable, so you can bake in sections and work on sections. So right now I'm working on this back leg here. This darker green material here is an epoxy sculpt, which is a very, that's a 2-part epoxy, and it cures extremely hard. So I want to work on this back leg. If anybody has questions, feel free to ask if anybody comes in. I'll try my best to answer them. Hey there, Rusty. He's gonna have one more massive muscle back here. kind of completes him that way. Then he's going to have a muscle that comes underneath, I think, on this side. Unlike our human anatomy. So right now I'm just blocking in the basic shapes. And this, like I said, this part is all solid. All that part is just working on this back leg. It's one of the things I like about cosplay. You can work in sections. Same with the epoxy clay that's underneath. But with the epoxy clay, I can't get the same type of details that I can get with the cos clay. And the cos clay is also neat because it's flexible. This is baked, but you can see it's got flexibility in it. So that when I shape this tail, I'll be able to pose the tail afterwards. There's no wire in this, but it's a flexible polymer clay. And, eventually I'll just glue that. I'll glue that tongue in there and leave it. It's our creature so far. So basically what I like to do is get the muscle masses all shaped in. And then I'll smooth it with Gamsol. See that stuff? I'll smooth it out, let it rest for a little bit, and then I'll go in and I'll sculpt on some details. And I keep moving it around, I apologize. You get a shot of its ass. And what I have beneath the between the cos clay and the epoxy is just a sculpey. It's like a glue almost, which kind of helps adhere it. So I'm gonna put a little bit of glue up on this edge. You really don't need a lot of it, just a very light coat. It's like paint by numbers. Like I said, eventually we'll have a lady sitting up here riding this guy, like a warrior princess, somebody's OC character. I'll reveal all that at a later date. give him another muscle in here. And I gotta just add this in here. I don't know how I think I'm going to pose his tail so it comes out and kind of points back into him. So you, hello, Melissa. So you, the focus comes back to the character or to the monster or to the character that'll be riding. So she'll be up here like that, holding a sword, and then maybe I'll have the tail up higher, kind of pointing down. The cool thing about cosplay is once I put it on here, on the wire, it'll be bendable. So like, because cosplay, although it's a polymer clay, it's flexible. It has, I don't know if you guys can see that, it has flexibility in it. And this is baked hard. And I'm going to glue that tongue in there eventually. Just put another scale here, I think. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. So as I said earlier, I like to just first do the muscle masses, like just add those in and kind of shape them out. And then once I have the muscle masses, I'll smooth them out, wait a little bit, and then I'll go in and do details. I could bake it and do the details after. That's also possible, but I like to do it all at once in a section at a time. Do you take it off the base and bake it? No, the whole base bakes right in the oven. 275. I could have designed it that way, but she'll be removable, so that I can bake her separate. And what I'm going to do is I'll drill like a little hole, and I'll have these plastic tubings that connect with one another. So her, go right through her butt. Oops, sorry about that. It'll go right in her butt and or her underneath her, depends on how I sculpt her. Stay on there, but it'll detach from there. But this goes right in the oven, 275, 45 minutes each bake, and you can bake multiple times. Brian Shearer, is it a random piece of wood or is it made for this? It is a piece of wood that I got at a craft store. So, if you go into the wood burning section, you can get all types of different shapes and things that are bakeable. Because the temperature is so low, it's 275, it never burns it. It's not treated. Obviously the wood burning tool, if I were to wood burn on this, it'd be at a higher temp. This has already had multiple bakes. Like I've worked in sections, so like obviously the arm, the head, the other arm. I just work it in different sections and bake each time. So that way I don't have to worry. Like if I'm sculpt, which is the nice thing about cosplay, I don't have to worry as I'm sculpting. I mush my hand here and I mess up that area. I can work a section at a time, get it where I want it, move on to another section. What I did with this one, though, which I haven't done with past ones, is I did first a basic shape of the sculpture itself in epoxy sculpt, which is a 2-part epoxy. Takes about 3 hours to fully cure. And I just basically did that in sections. Once that was done, I started laying the cast clay over top for the details. So it's cast clay, Brian. This stuff right here. This is a medium firm that I have, so you can see it's very easy to work with. I like firmer clays, but this one's pretty decent to work with at a medium firm. So I've used it in the past, but I didn't really like it, probably because I was just so new to sculpting that I was kind of impatient, and I didn't really know about the baking and steps. I thought I had to do the whole sculpture then bake it. Um, but you can bake this over and over again, and it doesn't affect it. And then once it's all complete, I'll spray it with a primer paint, with a primer, and it'll get everything, one consistent color. But I'm going to add details to like the base, these rocks. I'm going to make them a little, obviously better. Um, and then I'll have this warrior princess on top, or warrior character kind of riding on top. And I'll make a connection point probably at her waist. So I'll drill a hole into the epoxy, and I'll insert 2 plastic tubes that fit together. So she'll be removable. So I can sculpt her, take her off and sculpt her separately, bake her separately. Hey, thanks, Manny. Yeah, no problem, Brian. Anytime. Actually, it's um, it's not hard. I mean, if you know like some basic anatomy, um, you just go for it. Just grab some clay. I tell people if you want to start sculpting, get a tub of monster clay. It'll cost you $40. You get a 5-pound tub. Get the firm, and monster clay allows you to reuse it over and over again. So while it's hard, heat will affect it. So you can sculpt, and you could do a lot. People use it for concept work, or they'll do full sculptures and then they'll make molds and cast it in different materials. Um, but it's a great clay. If they invented monster clay as a standalone, where it would take a really high heat to get it soft, and you could do one-offs, I would recommend everybody sculpt in monster clay. That's like my favorite clay to sculpt in. Um, but if you want to practice, you can do a sculpture, heat it up and melt it down and start again. So it's not like unless you do what I do, which is coat it in resin. Well, the nice stuff about this is you don't have to worry about any of like that. You don't have to. You can do it right in your home oven. It's completely safe. Um, you know, it's not gonna. You're not gonna die from the smell of this. So it's a flexible polymer clay. So it's once it's baked, the pieces are flexible. Like I said, once I put the clay around this tail and I sculpt it and I bake it, I'll be able to actually pose the tail. I did a Nightcrawler piece like that with a tail a while back, and the tail was bendable. But basically, it's just like drawing or doing comics. You start with the basic shapes, and then once you have your basic shapes, you do your rendering, or do your lighting and your details. And it's no different. It has a slight smell, but it doesn't linger. It's not. It's not horrible. It's not horrible smelling where you're like, oh God, what the heck is in there? Actually, the first time I baked epoxy, I thought the epoxy was a lot worse. But no real fumes that are going to drive you crazy. And then to smooth things out, you use like Gamsol or mineral spirits. And I'll do that once I have the muscles sculpted the way I want them. He needs a smaller muscle right here. You bake it at 275 for about 45 minutes each time you bake. So if you do 45 minutes, it comes out. If you guys can hear that, pretty solid. Solid but flexible. Like these pieces are flexible. You know, they have some, they're rigid right now because I have the epoxy underneath. But if this were just cast clay, you would really see the flexibility. And that's what you'll see when I do eventually do the tail. All right, I'm sort of liking the way that looks. It's meaty enough, right? Is that meaty enough? What do you guys think? Meaty? I gotta put a little meat in the back over here. Yeah, a little bigger. And you can let this sit for a while. You don't have to like fire. Epoxy can be awful smelling. The epoxy sculpt that I use, it smells like corn chips. I use Eve's epoxy, which is a 2-part epoxy. You guys can see that. You mix the A and the B, and you wait about, I usually wait about half hour, and then I start using it. And it takes, you've got about a 3-hour work window with it. So after 3 hours, it's hard. The only way you're going to work with it is with a drill or a Dremel at that point. The main reason why I like this clay is because of the ability to bake in sections. Because you don't have to worry about your hand touching another part of it while you sculpt the section, which me, I'm like, you can see I'm all over the place. So you don't have to worry too much about damaging unless you like, you know, break a piece off, but it's easy fix. You just use some of this Sculpey glue and you can glue it back on and rebake it and it'll go back on. All right, just gonna. I'm leaving some room here because I know I'm going to bulk that tail out later. Get a nice smaller tool. I really got into sculpting to kind of help with improving, hopefully improving my art, my 2D art, because it helps you see that and understand the muscles in 3D space rather than just a 2D picture, which helps, you know, when you can't get a pose right, understand why the arm goes away a certain way. Actually, I'm just actually 3D printing this right now. No, I'm kidding. There will be no 3D printers here. Not that there's anything wrong with that. The beautiful 3D statues. I just like creating things by hand, at least with art. If you were to ask me to build you a bench, you'd be sitting on the floor. The frustrating part for me, believe it or not, is building these stupid armatures. Here's epoxy that like that with my tumblers. 2-part epoxy. It takes days to cure sand, paint. If you use epoxy sculpt, my suggestion is wear gloves while you're mixing. Wait that roughly 45 minutes to an hour, and then you can use your hands. You just want that chemical reaction. You don't want that epoxy getting under your skin and curing under your skin. You can also use Vaseline, like just rub your hands in like a thin layer of Vaseline, and that'll like kind of close your pores off to it. But the Aves is great. I did an entire sculpture in Aves. It was difficult because getting details in the Aves is challenging. But what I found with this is that I've created the skeleton, sort of, if you will. The initial skeleton in the Aves, that's what this is here. You know, I just defined it out real quick, put it in pieces, just to give me a sturdy structure to work with. Also, it saves on the cost clay because the Aves is a little less expensive, believe it or not. All right. Wanna go in here a little bit. I should have made him like removable. So, you know, working right now on this undercarriage of him is a little challenging. I'm going to have to actually, like, when I work on it, flip him up on his end to get the belly. But I'm not worried about that as much. That won't be the focal point unless people want to climb underneath the hood. What I really want from the muscles is that they remain separate, but yet you don't get uh, the black crevices where it looks like it's a completely separate thing. I want them to appear that they're connected, even though they're individual muscles. If that makes sense. If not, I'm sorry. I'm not good at explaining things. At least that's what my wife tells me. All right. And we almost have a leg. Tell Britt O'Reilly I said hello. I would, but she is not here today. She is traveling. She will be back later, and I will tell you said hello. Boom, boom, boom. The other reason for using this GAM saw is that It thins your clay and it gets rid of what are called clay boogers. Those are the little pieces of clay that you drag with your tool. Don't have to worry too much about that with this guy because he's got scales. So clay boogers just look like little nodules. Actually enhances, but like if you're doing a face or something, you don't want like little clay boogers. And I guess that's a technical term because I've heard it used. Clay boogers, like right there was clay. Like I don't know if you guys can see. There's little clay boogers. All right, so that was fun. Never leave your bit of advice to people. Never leave your drink of choice where you sculpt so you don't accidentally go cheers and drink your capsule. Not that I've ever done that. Come close though. Don't want to use a lot of this. And basically all I'm going to do is just kind of go in the flow of the muscles. And at first you won't see the effects. It takes a little bit for it to start. But then once it goes, voila, all your boogers will disappear. Oh, it's the spot. Got my lighting down low. Oh, should open up the shade to get natural light in here. I'll do that later. Boogers. Boogers like snot, clay snot. It's just when you drag your tool through the clay. You pick up the clay with your tool as you're dragging and it can redeposit. Now, there is a method for not doing that, which is you would take plastic, like let's say a Ziploc bag, cut it into small pieces, lay it over the place that you want to add your line, and then use your tool over top of the plastic. And what that does is allows you to lay the line without lifting the clay underneath with your tool, and it avoids the boogers. But for what I'm sculpting right now, I don't have to worry. Like I said, I don't need to really worry about that too much because I'm just laying in basic form, muscle mass. And on a creature like this, little clay boogers can just add more detail to the piece. So, okay. This also removes fingerprints. So, Now to stay consistent with this, I'll do the scales over top of the muscle mass here, come down a little bit here. This under part, I'll put scales on this top part here. Anywhere like there's an upper, basically, or a top side, I'll put the scales on, because you want to think that nature, that's how nature protects. It usually leaves the underbelly free of like protection. So not unlike like a dog or a cat. That's why cats and dogs protect their underside, because it's their most vulnerable side. So, I won't put scales. I'll put scales on the back of his muscle mass. Underneath, I'll just draw the real wrinkly lines in there. Indicate a fleshier piece or part. Although it would have made sense to put scales on that upper part here, but maybe next. I mean, I could do it. I could add it. It wouldn't be that difficult, but I don't think anybody's going to go, hey, buddy, this guy's arm could be bit. All right. So that's the first part. And that's, I'll wait a little bit now, let that, let the Gamsol kind of evaporate off. I might do a little more shaping. I'll look at it from an angle and go, oh, this muscle might be raised a little bit too high, or I need to have like more of a crease in here. And I'll fix those things, and then I'll add the details. Sculpting the scales is really simple. You just take a small piece of clay, roll it into a ball, flatten it on, and you just do that in some sort of a pattern. Like I tried to go bigger down to smaller, as much as possible. I got to fix in here. I got to put in, so once this side is done, and I do this side, I'll lift them up and work underneath the hood. This leg is going to come up a little bit more. And like I said, we'll have a warrior princess hanging out on top of them, riding, kind of looking this way. So they kind of both look like they're staring that way. I think the money shot will be there. That'll be like, where doesn't she'll hold a sword? Oh, thank Mark. Melissa, do you think you could do a Ghostbusters terror dog one day? I want one. Yeah. It's pretty much, I mean, I obviously do my version of it, but as best I could. But yeah, I could do something like that. It's not beyond the realm of possibility. By the way, she sits perfectly. No matter where I put her, she sits perfectly. I consider that a good day. When your armature stands on its own. I don't know what you would call this creature, this beast. My wife said it looked like a rat. I said, what rat do you know that has scales? I guess a cross between a rat, a lizard, a rhino, and a dragon. You guys name it. I'm going to push this muscle in a little bit. Go. Might make that a non-scaled area. But if that were the case, it would be underneath those scales that are underneath. So maybe it'll be a scaled area. All right. How does that look? Ratafino. Yeah, there you go. A Ratafino. It's a Ratafino. Professionally made Ratafino. That's what happens when you let your rat get into your rhino farm. I think there needs to be a muscle mass in here as well, like a small. Kind of like a. Oops. I want to do a massive sculpture, like, well, I don't want to say massive, but a much larger piece than I normally do. I was thinking of doing like a homage to the 90s, doing like Spawn, Pit, and Die Hard, and there was somebody else I was going to put on there. Pit, Die Hard, Spawn, oh, Savage Dragon, and putting all three of them on a single sculpt, but make them all separate where they come together. You know, make the bases so that they could all fit together. That'd be kind of cool. We'll see. Yeah, be the tool. Here we go. All right. I think that's where I'm going to leave you folks. And while I let this Gamsol kind of dry out, and I sculpt my details. Details are boring. This is the fun part. Ratafino. Yeah, I can see that working. But I might steal that one. Mark. Just to let you know. Oh, Melissa, have a good one. Glad I could help. Like I said, I recommend if somebody is new to sculpting, get yourself a tub of monster clay. Play around with it. Mess up. Get frustrated. And then go to something a little bit more permanent once you're comfortable. I think I need to have a muscle mass right in here too, like a slight. There needs to be a slight muscle mass here. Maybe. Debating. If I just push this in slightly. I really think there should be. And when I do the other side, I gotta remember what I did here. All these little details. Clay boogers. I gotta. There we go. Now, I love when I lay my tools down and I can't find them afterwards. I'm usually like right in front of me. Uh, all right. Kind of give them a little bit more form, more shape there. Yes, yes, excellent. Smithers, how much are we paying for that life insurance? We're paying $1 a person, sir. What? We're being screwed. All right. It's been a rough 2 weeks, people. But life being rough is a part of life. There we go. One little spot. There we go. Oh, you bum. Like I said, I don't want these well-defined dark spaces, like gaps between the clay, because then it will make things look like they're totally separate when they're not. You know, your arm really technically isn't separated from your chest. It's all, there is one all, you know, when you're looking from the outside. Obviously medically, yes, and scientifically, yes, but when you're looking from the outside, it doesn't look like there's separation. You can see gaps, you know, you can see crevices, but if it's like a black line in there, uh, makes it seem like it's a totally separate piece. And I don't want that. I want smooth transition from muscle to muscle, which that muscle is not giving me. By the way, folks, your best sculpting tools right here, these things. All right, I'm going to call that done for now. And I'm going to end the stream. Thanks anybody who came out and commented. Appreciate you. Do you find it hard to get into small areas like the underside? Do you do that after the upper area hardens? So you can, this clay doesn't harden, you have to bake it. So I sculpt in stages. I'm working on this leg, but all this stuff has been baked. And I worked like the leg and I worked the head. So once I finish this details, I'll bake it. That'll be hard. And then normally when I sculpt, I would have sculpted this as a separate from the base so I could remove it. But I didn't do it with this one. It was started out as just an experiment with the epoxy clay, so I didn't really do that. Um, so to get underneath, I'll just turn it up on its side and I'll hold it in my hand and I'll sculpt underneath as best I can. But that's not really the focal point. Not too many people are going to go underneath and look at all the detail under his belly, unless he was separate. Unless you could separate him. The woman that I put on top will be separated. I'll create a connection point probably at her waist so that she can be removed. And right now the tongue is removable, which I'll just glue in there. I just did that for the fun of it. So I'm new to sculpting, so it's part experiment for me. There goes a tongue. The other good thing about this clay is that it's bendable once it's baked. So you can see this flexibility. It's, you can bend it. It's called cast clay. It's not your typical air dry type clay. And I'll just take some crazy glue and glue that tongue in there and it'll stay once it's done. I just wanted to try doing it separate. Be gone with you, lady. Yeah, so that's it for now. Thanks again, everybody who stepped out. You guys have a great day.